Hi everybody. Thanks for watching. I am going to talk a little bit about my personal favorite meditation trick. So this is something that came to me a long time ago. I started using this in childhood, maybe further back than I can even remember. And I call it tapping into the silence. So there's this, and then it also has kind of a partner trick that goes along with it. So I'll talk about that too. And that's more like tapping into space. But they're really both the same thing. So just using different senses. So tapping into the silence is something that I do anytime that I want to get centered. Anytime that I have a question that I'm asking for higher guidance on. Anytime that I want to elevate myself to a position of being above or beyond my thoughts. So when I want to expand my perspective to the observer of my thoughts so that I can watch them just kind of come in and go, become aware of thought patterns. So it's a mindfulness tool. It's something that I use anywhere, anytime, but it's definitely easier when it's quiet. And it's a almost instant way for me to get into a at least mindful position. But I use it a lot of the time too to enter a transcendental meditation or like a meditative state where I'm much, much, much deeper than where I need to be like a functioning person, So I'm saying like if I'm laying down and I'm by myself or sitting or whatever, I'm doing like a mind body type thing, like a yoga or something like that. So here's how I do it. I'll talk about that first. So I suggest starting in a quiet environment, or at least a relatively quiet environment. And what you're going to do is tap into the silence. So there are spaces between sounds, and you can find them if you're listening. It's easier to start when you're in a quiet environment because then you don't have to look as hard to try to find that space. But it's almost like you're finding the space that's behind the sounds. You're finding the space that the sounds fill. You're finding the space that links the sounds together and allows you to perceive them as separate. So if you can just listen to silence, how I used to do it when I was a kid was that I would plug my ears. So a good way to do it is to plug your ears and listen to see if you can hear a kind of high-pitched ringing. You might hear some lower frequency sounds that are more of like your own body sounds, like blood moving, or the pressure of your finger, and that's fine too if you want to start by just kind of tapping into those sounds. But then see what's beyond that, what's behind that, what sound is there when there isn't any other sound. That's what we're going for. And that's tapping into the silence. And when you do that, your mind is focused on that one thing. So you automatically move to the position of being an observer of other things. So that's kind of just something that's standard for meditative practice, is that if you can give your mind something to do, that creates more space. And that creates more awareness. So then that's something that you can work on as a practice and get better and better at doing, so that it's something that you can tap into really quickly and easily. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the more esoteric side of this for me. So I started using this tool when I was a kid to get into that meditative state. And then I started to notice in early adulthood that a lot of the time that frequency of the silence would change. And this is something that I don't fully understand, and I'm just riding with and experimenting with and trying to figure out as I go more. So usually I start by tapping into the silence, and then it starts to change. So I'll get like for example, like a little bit of a lower pitched frequency in one ear, or it'll shift to one side or the other, so I can hear movement. And then sometimes I get really strong frequency communication when I'm just like in my everyday activities, like just standing in the kitchen, cutting up some vegetables, and I get slammed with a frequency. And so what has kind of started to happen in the last couple years is that not only can I hear these sounds, but I can feel them. So the sound that I hear that is the sound of the silence now is so high in frequency, and this has risen in frequency over time. It used to be lower. That it actually is it sounds like light. It's the sound of light. That's the best way that I could describe it. And then after I got really solid in that, in like knowing the sound of light, of just pure white light, then it started to get to the point where I would get these other frequencies that would come in, and it seems like it's a form of, I mean, it is, I know that it is, but I don't understand why. It's a form of communication, and there are other beings or other aspects of myself that exist, you know, extra dimensionally, or however you want to look at it, that are communicating with me through frequency vibration that I have yet to decipher. So it's like I'm a radio that's getting stations, but I don't understand what they're saying. Like they're speaking a different language, which is super interesting to me. And these are the things, some of the things that I live for, because it's so exciting. So I can feel these frequencies, and it's like a feeling of sound. So, for example, the other day when I was in my kitchen cutting up vegetables, I got slammed with one of these frequencies that was just so bright and so high-pitched and so just light that it took me aback, and I had to stop what I was doing and just try to like reset and figure out what the hell just came through me. And I don't know what that was. I think that I'm picking up on energy shifts and feeling just different energy shifts that don't compute on a mental level at this point. So, but then also a lot of times they're lower frequencies that are still high pitched, but lower than that, like just base of light. And so it'll come in one ear and just all of a sudden be like, fade out. Sometimes it lasts for just a couple seconds. Sometimes it's a little bit longer than that. So if any of you are experiencing things like that, please talk to me about it, because I'm trying to understand this more too. So this is just as far as I've gotten. Everything's subject to change. You know, it's like, just like all things. My explanation currently is true, but that doesn't mean that there aren't so many other layers and so many other perspectives that I can take on this same information. So I'm excited to just watch this expand and grow with all of you as you maybe start to use this or start to tap into this psychic sense. The psychic sense of hearing is called clairaudience. This is something that we all have. To expand on it a little bit more, my clairaudience is also where I pick up a lot of music, where I receive a lot of communication in actual words, and a lot of that's channeled, like when I'm writing music, when I'm writing poetry, before I fall asleep, when I wake up in the morning, when I'm in that alpha brainwave state. It's really easy to receive clairaudient information, and also claircognizant information, which is clear seeing. So that's that third eye space opening up. So we've got the third eye, and we've also got like the third ear, which is the clairaudience. And so this is a way to develop your clairaudience. It's a really good trick, and I feel blessed and also like it's a divine occurrence on my path that this is something that I just naturally started to explore as a child, and it's carried me to where I am now. And then so along those same lines, we can also work on expanding and opening our third eye by tapping into space. So it's kind of like the silence of space, the empty space. So the way that I like to do this, there are actually a couple ways, but the way that I like to do this with my eyes open is if you can pick an object that's in front of you, but then focus your gaze halfway or partway between that object and your actual physical eyes. So you go from looking at something to picking a point in space and actually focusing on a point in space. So that brings your peripheral vision into focus more. And it's a way of using your whole eye more. So using that whole space, getting in touch with that whole space. Before we get more in touch with our psychic sense of vision, it's really helpful to get more in touch with our actual physical sense of vision, because our brain uses the same mechanism to understand both of those things. So, so it's the same process, but with one you're using your physical eyes, and with the other you're using your psychic eyes. We can all do this. This is why I always say everybody's psychic. That's not like something that only I get to experience or only other people who have figured it out that they're psychic get to experience. Everybody is moving into this and opening up more. And my job and gift that I'm bringing, and there are a lot of words for that, I guess, but I'm trying to look for one that's like more fun. My passion is sharing my experience so that other people can open up to all of this really fun stuff too, because I don't want to be the only one that's having a good time with all these things. So if you focus on that space, the space between things, you start to see differently. You start to see really differently. And then also you can do that with your eyes closed. You can focus on the color that's there that you see like kind of behind your eyelids. And then what I used to do when I was a kid, also trying to get into that same meditative space, is to kind of pull my vision back, pull my third eye back until I feel like instead of seeing my eyelids, like actually kind of seeing that red color that you get when the light is coming through and you can visually like actually perceive the blood in your tissue, pulling my vision back past that more until it's more of just a blank space. That's harder to explain and something that you'll probably just need to experiment with. A lot of times you'll find something in that blank space waiting for you, and that's just kind of what happens when you start to open your third eye or your imagination, is that there's some stuff that's in there, you know? So you can focus on that, or you can just continue to focus on the space and allow those images to move through, and pay attention to your body. What do you feel when you're seeing these things? What do you feel when you're hearing these sounds? So as we start to work on one psychic sense, we're working on all of them, and we can shift our awareness to different parts of our sensual experience to be able to link them all together and really develop our intuition ultimately. So we want all of our senses to be working. We want everything to be optimal and working together, and to be aware of the relationship between all of these different things that we're able to take in. So if you pick just one of these activities, you're going to probably find yourself experimenting with the other one too. It just kind of works that way. And then another way that you could do the focusing on space, or the tapping into the space, the visual space activity, is that if you can find a wall, well, for me it works with everything. Like I can look at anything and do it, but I couldn't always. So you can, if you want to start how I started, you can find a wall, like a white wall. White's usually the easiest color. And focus on it until you can see all the colored pixels that it's made out of, and how it contains all the colors. When you can see that, then you can start to look at other objects, and you can see the light that they're made out of, visually. So it's like breaking down your vision to the point that you're actually looking at the light that you're perceiving, that your eyes are taking in. You can break it down to like the pixels, which is maybe functional, maybe functionless, but regardless, fun to do and helps me just understand and explore my vision more and what that sense means. So that's another one. And these are all mindfulness tricks and tools too. So if you're, like, for example, at the doctor and you're getting a shot and that's something that really bothers you, look at the wall. Look at all the little pixels that it's made out of and let your mind move into that relaxed position where you're focused on something. And it doesn't have to be that your focus is pulled to whatever fear-based thoughts you have. So that's the gift that comes with all of this, is that you develop control. And it's control in a way that goes behind the scenes, to where instead of wanting to actually control physical outcome, you're controlling your own perception, you're controlling your own awareness, you're controlling the emotional space that you have available for the events that are happening around you and to you, and you really start to develop a different understanding of yourself. I can talk more later about how this all ties into the law of attraction, because I know that that's a hot topic and something that everybody is starting to really want to work with more intentionally. That's also something that I like to work with clients on. So if you're interested in that and you want to talk with me more about using your psychic senses to help you work with the law of attraction more intentionally, we can do that too, separately. But for now, I just want to say that how we intentionally work with the law of attraction is to take that position of being the observer and allowing there to be space and tapping into the space that's there. And now I'm getting the sound of light again. The feeling of the sound of light. Doesn't that just sound funny? It's synesthesia. It's when all your senses start to cross and they just all are one thing. It's like one space of awareness. But from this position, when you get yourself centered, that's when you can work with the law of attraction intentionally. So if you have questions about that, ask me and I'll break that down more, in more detail. But also, if you have questions about any of this stuff, contact me through my handle at Dear Mama Rose on any social media platform, or at my email address, which is contact@mamarose.blog, or through the contact forum on my blog, or via Facebook, Messenger, any way that you want to try to get a hold of me. Ask questions, because I really love to speak on all of these things and to just kind of help draw lines between stuff for people. We all have really unique experiences, but they're all connected. So that's something I'm excited about doing. So if any part of this jumps out at you and you're like, oh, that's interesting, but I would like to understand it better, or I have my own experience that kind of parallels that in some way, tell me. Share it with me, and we can talk more about it. So those are a couple really helpful meditation tricks that I use that have expanded a lot and grown a lot over time for me, and are continuing to grow always. And I'm continuing to understand them better and just ask different questions. So let me see if there's anything else that I wanted to say about those. A lot of the time when I'm communicating with people who have passed on, or extra-dimensional beings, they'll communicate with those light frequencies too, and I don't usually really ever know what it means, so I ask for the communication to come in other ways, like claircognizantly, with like downloads of knowing, clairvoyantly. Oh, I think earlier I accidentally said claircognizant was clear seeing. It's not. Clairvoyance. Clairvoyant is the term for the psychic sense of sight. So clear seeing, clairvoyance. Claircognizance is when you get psychic downloads, or you just know something. So that's another one of the ways that I receive a lot of information. But yeah, so I usually ask them to communicate with me that way, or to to communicate with me through my external environment, because obviously everything is connected, right? So if whoever you're communicating with is communicating from a perspective that's behind the scenes or more elevated than yours, they can use anything in your experience to communicate with you, right? So that's how we use numbers and nature and different animals or occurrences, happenings. That's how people who've passed on and extra dimensional beings and higher aspects of self can communicate to you through other people. There are really infinite tools at their disposal and at your disposal to communicate with yourself. So if you're praying to your higher self and asking questions, look big, look broad, look everywhere for that information to come to you in all of the different ways, because it does. And I'm in communication constantly with the world around me and with my psychic senses, and it provides a very, very helpful feeling of being guided and supported, which provides confidence, because then I know I can handle whatever's coming because I'm guided and I'm supported. So usually if I pray, that's what I pray for. Usually. I mean, also other things that I think are a little bit more shallow-minded still, and that still come from that aspect of me that wants to control things. So, we're working on it and growing. And that's part of working with the law of attraction more intentionally too, is living in that space of trusting and knowing that we're guided, and gratitude, ultimately. Being grateful for everything that we have and everything that is coming and all the experience that we've had in the past, and just really accepting the future as we receive it. And transmitting the frequency vibration into the future that we want to be receiving. So again, we can break that down more. Ask questions. Talk to me if you want to work with me in the different type of setting. Like if you want to have a healing session, or if you would like to do some life coaching, something like that. There are lots of different options and ways that you can work with me. And yeah, I think that that's pretty much all that I have to say about those. But use those tools if you are so inclined, and let me know how it goes for you. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear back. That's all. All right. I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for listening. Signing off.